recording, we are recording this webinar so that folks who aren't able to make it will be able to access it, and we'll make that available to you. And I want to make sure that everybody can hear me okay. Any issues with the audio? Good. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is just start. I'm going to read down the names of the agencies and make sure that we know who's on the line. And I'll start with Child and Family Services, and I know that Carrie Santos and Melissa Ogilvie are here.
Yes, we are here.
Hi. Hi. Is there anybody else here from Child and Family?
Yes, Tammy Boucher.
I can barely hear you.
Tammy Boucher.
Tammy. Okay, welcome, Tammy.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Andy Roy.
Okay, great. All right. Anybody else from Child and Family? Okay. Belknap, Merrimack County, Cap?
Siobhan Connolly.
Siobhan, okay. And is anybody else from your agency joining today?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if I'm
Stratford? Pardon me, I missed that.
Stratford Cap is here.
Okay, okay. And who's there? Halen?
Just Halen, and
okay.
Someone else I think is joining.
Okay. TLC? Is anybody here from TLC?
I believe that Melanie had sent an email to find out if it was being recorded, so I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. And Melanie just said she's not sure if her mic works, but she's here.
Okay. Okay.
Oh.
Central VNA and Hospice, Shelly, are you there?
I am.
Anybody else from your program?
One's out on medical leave and the other one's out doing field work because of tomorrow's storm. So.
Yeah, okay. Yep, and Family Resource Centers, I have Kristen and Amy. Anybody else? Okay. And Home, Healthcare, Hospice, and Community Services.
Mary's here.
Mary, okay. Thank you. Okay, so, and I heard a couple beeps coming on while we were going through this. Is who has come on that I didn't, who I didn't call your organization or your name?
Melanie.
Okay, Melanie's here. Okay.
Yeah. She just chatted in that they are here.
Okay. All right.
Her whole team is here.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Well, it looks like we've got representation from every LIA. So welcome. And I wanted to just start right off by acknowledging that we did change the focus of the webinar, that it shifted from the original plan based on some feedback that we got that the process was moving too fast, but also that there may be some other QI work that your agencies are working on that we might be able to align the work for this initiative for Healthy Families America with. So we recognize that an authentic commitment to the continuous quality improvement process requires that it be inclusive, that it be data-driven, and that it be reflective. And so we took the feedback that we received and reshaped how we plan to use the time together to respond to that. What we had laid out, a plan for today's objectives, we identified 3. And the first one is that we plan to continue the discussion around barriers and enablers that we started at the Learning Exchange. And we do envision that this is a list that's going to be ongoing, that we'll continue to build together, especially, hopefully, finding more enablers as time goes by and the project unfolds. And Yvonne will lead that discussion. And then the second objective here is to apply the process mapping tool to examine participant enrollment process. And so we'll revisit the process mapping tool, the process mapping as a tool to describe the flow of activity or a process. And Shelly from Central New Hampshire VNA has graciously agreed to share her team's participant enrollment process as an example. And Megan and Shelly will lead this discussion. And then finally, we want to take some time to discuss how the quality improvement work that you do for other programs besides Healthy Families America, or work that you're already involved in your day-to-day work, or any work that you've done in the past can inform the work that we're doing now. And also to think about how we may be able to do some streamlining of this quality improvement work. And I want to say that if we need more time as a group than what we have for this discussion today, we can make more time. We can make more time as a group, but you should also please bring your thoughts to your individual coaches. But I really want to emphasize that we see this reflective of the continuous quality improvement cycle, that we see this as a continuing opportunities for us to really learn more about what it is that you're doing, and for you to be able to really use the work and the knowledge and the efforts that you've put into already to improving your programs over time to inform the work that we're doing in this project. So that was our thoughts about the approach, and I just want to ask if anybody has any concerns about this approach. Okay. Okay. So, and I want to urge you again to bring your thoughts and your concerns. Please bring them forward so that we can, we can address them as we need to. So the other thing that I wanted to touch base on before we jump into the barriers and enablers are the identified ideas for improvement that your organizations have identified that we are aware of. So it looks like, looking here, that most agencies are looking at improving enrollment in general, or in the case of Stratford, enrollment of prenatal participants. And some of you are also looking at retention, although Child and Family is looking at improving home visit completion rates. So I share this here so that hopefully as we dig deeper, this Learning Collaborative can provide a forum for cross-sharing as we learn more about what kinds of strategies are working at each of your agencies, and so that you can recognize which other organizations are working on the same areas that you are. So any comments or questions? All right, well, Yvonne, I will turn it to you for the discussion of the barriers and enablers.
Okay. Well, we were able to organize and pull together the barriers and enablers that we brainstormed together during the learning exchange back in November, and they really sort of clustered around program-oriented barriers and enablers and participant-oriented barriers and enablers. And if you'll go to the next slide, Lee. So we organized them around those two areas, and for the most part, the program-oriented enablers, barriers and enablers are on this side. There's maybe one more on the next one, but we're going to focus on this slide for a minute. And you all did such an awesome job during the time that we were brainstorming to really getting, you know, when you identified some barriers, you were able to identify several enablers to address those barriers. And for the areas that we didn't have enablers, it was really because we were running out of time. I think, you know, with all of your energy and thoughtfulness, if we had had more time during that brainstorming session, y'all would have identified enablers. So we wanted to circle back around, one, kind of share this back with you, and our thought is we'll revisit this periodically during our group calls, because if you'll remember, you know, our plan is to have one-on-one calls with you all, but also come together like this for periodically as a group, and we'd love to, you know, kind of keep sharing this back and touching base and seeing if through your plans you're addressing the barriers and identifying new enablers as Lee suggested. So we wanted to share this and kind of see if you feel like we captured adequately and accurately what you all had identified. And like I said, this is what we sort of captured and considered the really sort of program-focused barriers and enablers. And then I'd love to spend a little bit of time, if you don't mind, maybe brainstorming a little bit some enablers for these first three rows of barriers that we didn't have time to think about some enablers when we were all together. Did someone have something that they wanted to share? So maybe we'll jump down to so just from big picture, and I don't know, I'm happy to go through and read them, but but if y'all have a minute and wanted to kind of read through it, do you feel like we've captured the barriers accurately from what you all brainstormed when we were together, and do you feel like these are really sort of program focused barriers the way that we thought that they were?
Yvonne, maybe we should show both of the slides and then come back to the first slide.
Okay. Oh, yeah, and you have to do it. I tried to do it. Okay. And so the second slide, except for the first row, the first row is the last one of the program-focused barriers and enablers, and then the rest of them are what we considered the participant-focused barriers and enablers. So that high need of target population, the mental health and trauma challenges that your participants have, that distrust of the system, high opioid use, the location of participants, which can contribute to safety and geography challenges, transportation. I'm sorry?
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure, sure.
Why is this distillation of the barriers and enablers just from the learning exchange rather than from the 5 Ps assessment that we all provided, which were probably more thorough and thoughtful?
Well, because this is what we did together, like we all brainstormed together, and we had committed to typing them up and sharing them back with the group, and so this was the first opportunity we had to come back together as a group. And so we can definitely go back and scan all of the 5 Ps for sure, and sort of pull those pieces out as well. As a team, we can do that and add to this list. Does that sound like from the group that would be? Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you if you wanted me to go back to the other slide now that everybody's had a chance to see them all.
Sure.
Okay.
So are you looking for enablers for the ones that we didn't get to on this first slide?
Yep, that's exactly it.
So one thing that we've been working on at the state is increasing coordination with other home visiting programs and kind of that state level coordination. We heard a lot during our site visits that would be helpful. So the Home Visiting Task Force has been created, and hopefully that will enable some clarity around brand confusion and competition and things like that by increasing communication between programs.
Wonderful. Okay.
Hello, this is Lisa. I think one of the I think put an enabler on for the very first one. We are constantly doing advocacy work at Child and Family Services to try to, you know, acknowledge that the funding levels haven't increased for most of the home visiting programs in a number of years, and to try to get that need met on a funding level. I'm not saying that it's working or it's going to work anytime soon, but that is definitely something that we're trying to do.
Great. So advocacy work, wonderful.
Good.
So stay. Any other thoughts before we shift over to the participant enablers and barriers?
Hello. Worst webinar ever.
Okay. And I think the only one that we didn't have anything identified for when we were all together was the high opioid use. But then we'd happily add any other enablers to the list for the other barriers that we brainstormed back in November as well. But any thoughts for things that we could add to the list for addressing the high opioid use and supporting you all in doing that as part of your work with your participants?
So this is Lee, and I would just from the perspective, from my perspective, from the Center for Excellence here at CHI, that I know that there is a major focus right now on working with prenatal women with substance use disorders. And so there has been a significant amount of resources that are just in the past couple months really being targeted to that particular population. And one of the types of resources that have been a recipient of some of those funds are like the Hope on Haven Hill and the several residential settings for women who are pregnant or women with new babies. And I don't know if anybody if any of you are working with any of those organizations. Is there an overlap? Do you work with them? No. Stafford? Do you folks, Haley, do you have any connection with that Hope on Haven Hill, or is that just a different place on the continuum?
We have some, but mostly our early Head Start program works with those moms. It's just sort of a division we came up with within the agency so that we don't have multiple programs in a residential facility that's confusing to the participants. So they're mostly early Head Start.
I know in talking with, this is Christy, I know in talking with Georgie, she had talked about because Families First has a medication-assisted treatment program that they do a lot of work internally together, and they do some consultation and whatnot with that program.
So, oh yeah. And actually, I think they're also doing some intensive outpatient also as a new, kind of a new thing that they're starting up over there.
Okay. Well, thank you all, and we will definitely go back to your 5 Ps and scan those and pull together any common themes that we see across all of those as well to add to this list. And but again, we had committed to sharing them back with you from your brainstorming energy at the learning exchange, and so we definitely wanted to do that, and we'll revisit it periodically and just see where we are with this list. And thank you for contributing to the small list of enablers that we weren't able to get to when we were together.
Thank you, Yvonne.
So, oh, sorry, Lee. I chimed right in. So, hi, everyone. This is Megan as part of the team, the CHI team, and I get to walk through this next piece along with Shelly. One of the things we heard from you all, some feedback, was that folks would like to hear a little bit more about process mapping and slow it down a little and dig in again just to make sure that everyone can kind of have a common understanding. And so we thought this would be worth revisiting a bit more. So could we go to the next slide? All right, great. So where to start? You know, this really can be a daunting experience. Systems are daunting. And one way to really get a handle on the issue you're focusing on is to establish a shared understanding among the team about the process that you're working on. And you can outline this through a process map. There is no one way to do this. You can do this in a lot of different ways. And this map really aims to show an organizational focus to your work processes. So you'll take that issue that you're focusing on. Say so many of you, and thinking back to what Lee shared at the beginning, a lot of you are working on or looking at enrollment. A lot of you are looking at recruitment. You take that issue, and then you can really think about the process. Think about it in a sort of image function. These maps are really useful for describing a process, highlighting bottlenecks and duplications, areas of complexity. It helps you organize client flow, strategies, and decision rules, and it will really help you begin to make a detailed plan for what each step looks like, but then help you identify key problems and understand areas within the system to determine a focus for your test of ideas. A process map can be really formal and sophisticated. It can also be really simple. You can use sticky notes. You can write it by hand like some of y'all did when we were all face-to-face. It can also be, if somebody on your team loves Excel. I know my husband, every decision is made with Excel in his brain. But so you can also use Excel, and we try to give you a template for that too that can help easily build a process map. So if you go to the next slide, please. This is sort of the kind of, to think of a key of a map, you know, a key where the symbols are at on a map. These symbols here on this slide are those pictorial representations of the sequence of actions that comprise this process. So images like the gray rectangle is where you'd start. And then at points of activity, where that kind of fluorescent blue is, you can list your activities. Where there's points of data collection, you can use that other symbol. You can read what's on the slide. But really, using these symbols can help you really dissect an issue or a process to really try and help you understand and organize it. So as Lee pointed out at the beginning, Shelly has very kindly offered to let us collectively look at and hear from her what her experience was like in putting together her process map. So Shelly, are you off mute right now?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for your willingness to do this. The first slide here, would you mind talking us through what this is here, Shelly? Because this was the first part of this for you.
I can't get on to the website. It keeps on denying me, so I'm looking at what you sent me in an email.
Okay. Oh, well, what we have right now, just so you know, we took a picture of your handwritten map first. Okay. And so that's what folks are looking at now. They're looking at the actual notebook paper where you began to kind of tear apart your process.
Okay. All right. So we decided to do this because we've gone to a kind of like a central intake for the agency, and which is fine, but I think that what's happening is a lot of my referrals don't need to go into the computer, so I'm trying to get away from that so that central intake doesn't put everything in the computer, because otherwise some of it doesn't need to be in there. So that's what started my. So and that's where we found out a couple things. Well, we found out that intake was taking all my referrals and putting it in there, and then I wasn't getting them right away. So I think that's might be part of our enrollment issue. And then from there, yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue. Please continue. Please continue.
So from there, we've already worked on, we already have a tentative process in place with intake on how to pick out which ones don't need to go into the computer and directly come to me. And that was mainly because neither one of my home visitors are on the computer, so, and I can't email them the stuff. So this is where we were thinking we were falling apart. So, and then out of that conversation was how many times do we call the patient, who does the follow-up? There's been a variety of things that we've done in the past, so we came up with a decision that we're going to try 3 days in a row of calling these people, and then after that, if the home visitor can't get a hold of them, then I'm going to try as a supervisor or the program manager. So that's a new thing that we've just started with our new referrals. So effective probably last week. So we've only had one new.
Okay, so you started it.
Yeah, we've only had one new referral since last week, and we already had an issue because we had the wrong phone number, which is a big problem for probably everybody. So then it took us 3 days to figure out the new phone number. So so that was, but that's an ongoing thing. That's never gonna. We're never gonna be able to fix that. So. So we tried. We just start. We'll see how that is gonna play out. Right now, unfortunately, I'm going to be doing the phone call. Not unfortunately, but I'll be doing the phone calls because I have a home visitor out on medical leave.
So Shelly, did you, when you sat down to build this process map, did you kind of sit down with pen and paper? By the way, your handwriting is very nice. It's very legible. Did you sit down, or did you sit down also with your team to really kind of look at this together? Shelly, are you still there?
I think we might have lost her, Megan.
Oh,
okay. She sort of faded out, and then I heard a beep.
I heard the beep too, and I was like hoping it wasn't Shelly, but hopefully she'll dial back in. So so folks, we kind of wanted to show you this so you could see where, it can start here. It can be a handwritten process where you sit down with your team and you go through, you start with your issue, and then you begin to put out the flow. You can see where Shelly highlighted and circled and starred and checked different things to symbol either a decision or an opportunity. And Lee, do you want to advance to the next few slides and we can kind of show Lee then, Shelly allowed us to then try and give another interpretation too of what this could look like. So then Lee took the process map and used those other, the symbols we showed earlier and converted it into to look like this. Both are serving a similar purpose. You know, if it's useful to you and your team to organize your process, that's the end goal. But we just wanted to also give you this other take of what the process map or chart flow could look like. Lee, did you want to talk more about that?
Sure. Shelly, you're gone, right? or
I just sent that email.
Okay. Yep. So I took what Shelly sent us, and so we looked at it and kind of started taking it apart and looking at where, for example, where did it start and where did it end? And those are the gray bars. And so basically, where their process, if they're talking about, is this Shelly?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened.
Okay, yay, welcome back. So I was just starting to talk about the diagram. So do you want to talk about how this looks like, you know, as a result of the written notes that you sent us?
Yeah, can you kind of, so I don't have the written notes in front of me, and I can't get on the website. I can't get on it's not letting me on. It says that the meeting number or the passcode is wrong.
Sally, I just sent you an email with all the information.
Right. So
maybe we could also open it up. I think that let's hear from all of you too. If you have questions, just even from what you've heard from Shelly or what Lee shared or early on, chime in at any point, because I do think that this is an opportunity for us to come together and discuss this, right? So chime in or chat in any questions you might have.
So Shelly, I can kick this off and we can kind of go through it together if you want.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
I didn't make a copy of what I sent you, and then I can't, my computer is being.
Okay.
It's a Monday.
So you got the diagram though, I think, right? And there's two diagrams. So this is the diagram that looks like what it looked like to us was your current enrollment process. And it starts, as the enrollment process, it really starts when you receive that fax, when Central receives that fax. So that's really where it starts for your process.
Right.
And then as I understood it, so they receive the fax form, and something happens in that central intake where there's some kind of complication, which we didn't know when we built this, but which you just described has to do with, you know, whether or not your participants need to go in the centralized database. But that wasn't clear. So what I put here on this diagram was that there was some kind of complexity around the referral intake, and that also you can see from the symbol that is a place where some data collection happens. And then the next thing that happens is an activity is that when you get the information from central intake, that you initiate a call to a potential participant to set up a visit. And then, and then you're at that yellow diagram, which is a decision point or some branch off. Something's going to happen one way or another way. And if there's a successful connection, if there's a successful connection with the participant, then a visit is scheduled. And if there isn't a successful connection with the participant, then it wasn't clear what happened. So there's question marks in that box. But you described what you've just put in place since you developed that initial plan around some strategies. And so they're not on this because that wasn't, this point in time was before you did that. Okay. So that's why there's a question in there. But then the staff schedules a visit, and they conduct a visit and an assessment, and there more data collection happens. And then you have that information, and you get to another decision point of whether the participant qualifies for the service. And if they don't qualify for the service, then they aren't enrolled. So there's that gray stop box. But if they do qualify for the service, then the next level of questions is, do they accept the service? And if they don't accept the service, then I think you leave information with the participant and they aren't enrolled. And if they do accept the services, then they are enrolled, and then the enrollment process is complete.
Yes. Where we were having the most trouble was between central intake and getting the referral, and that we're still working on. That's a work in process. We got to figure out what works for central intake. And then the other part is that, you know, we are now established the 3-day phone call in a row. And if not successful, then the program manager will make some phone calls. So,
okay.
But we haven't figured out past that how many times I'm going to call, and before we just say, okay, you know, then we call the referral back and say we're not successfully getting a hold of them. So.
Okay. So let me just, because we did actually do another map that shows what we understood you were saying in terms of these ideas for enrollment. So what's on the computer right now is that slide that says ideas for improving enrollment process, and you had simplifying the referral intake, establishing standards or procedures for calls and how many and who should do them and how to reach folks, and that's where that second step process and the 3-day calls in a row fell. And then another piece that you had written on your process map was to strengthen relationships with referral agencies.
Right. So.
And I wasn't exactly sure what you meant by that, whether you were talking about relationships with agencies that are making referrals to you or agencies that you're then referring participants to.
I meant the agencies that refer to us, mainly because had some staff, there's been significant staff turnover up in this area, which I know everybody else is probably experiencing too. So we're back out there, you know, trying to, you know, meet all the new people and really strengthen the relationship so that, you know, we'd love to be the one place that they call, you know, and then we refer if they don't fall into any of our programs, that we refer them to the other programs. That's what we're ultimately would benefit, what we're striving for. So.
Okay. Then I'm going to move it to the next slide, which was the proposed, which is how we, and this may not be what you're doing, but it was a way that when we interpreted what it looked like you wanted to do, what it could look like. And you, Shelly, you have it in front of you, right?
Yep.
Okay, so so we still weren't sure what you were going to do with that intake, but knowing that something was going to happen there.
Yeah, I'm still not sure what I'm doing with that intake, so.
So Shelly, I think that that is like, what that tells me is that's the place where you need to go and further figure out what really does happen and clean it up to what it is, what you want it to be.
Right, right. And that's what I'm trying to, right.
Yeah. So that's a target area right there, a place to focus. Oh, can I do that? Yeah. Thank you. And then you still at the same, so you've got a lot of the same steps here. The primary initiates the call. Is there a successful connection? If there is, then the visit gets scheduled and the same process follows through. There's, you know, that it's basically the same. But if it's not successful, and this is where I'm not sure that I understood what you are, but let me know if this is correct or incorrect. But on day 2, that was day 1, is that initial call? And day 2, the program manager calls to set up a visit? No.
Actually, we're gonna have the home visitor make 3 calls in a row.
Okay, so the 3 call comes before the program manager does it.
Yes. And then on the 3rd or 4th day, if she's not successful, then it will be turned over to me to see what we can do. So.
Okay.
Now, still working on, you know, do I call again? Do I call the referral source and find out what's going on? We're still we're vague there still. It's just thinking. It's a process of figuring out what would be best for everybody. So, and if anybody has any ideas of what to do, that would be greatly appreciated. So, I don't want to throw in and say no, we're not going to try this, and then lose that candidate. You know, just because we made 3 days in a row doesn't mean that they don't want service. You know, could be 3 bad days that they're just not answering their phone. You know,
right.
So, and this has always been something that how long do we bug them? That's not the right word. How long do we try to reach them before? You know, it's always, how long do we do this, for,
yeah.
And I know the standard, so it's always been one of those things that I've always had turmoil with.
Yeah. So does any of the other programs have any suggestions about what works for them? Or even if you don't have a suggestion about what works for you, do you have any comments about what might work for Shelly, or what Shelly might at least test?
I have something that when I was at the site, this is Leah, when I was at CAP, sometimes depending on the referral source, so if it was the local prenatal care provider, if we didn't have an accurate phone number for them, or if they weren't responding by the phone, I could sometimes find out when their next appointment was, and the next time that the social worker at their prenatal office was meeting with them, and sometimes they'd let me go in and introduce myself, so that way the next time I called, they would have some recognition of who I was. I don't know if that's feasible or anything, but I thought I'd throw it out there.
No, it's always feasible. I send my home visitors into any, visits or referral sources, all the time. That's something that we would love to do more of. But
cool.
Shelly,
yeah.
Did you see too, Lee, that Melanie chatted in that sometimes they tried texting? And Shelly, I don't know if you tried texting in addition to the calls too.
Yeah, we have. That's a big issue in our agency. So, yeah, yeah.
A big issue from the VNA.
Yeah, it's a HIPAA issue. We're not supposed to. So it's a big qualm in my program. So I'm working on it. Yes, but I think we'd have much better success if we could text. So we'll see.
Well,
maybe.
Melanie, does TLC have any tips about the HIPAA aspect? I think you're on. I think you're not able to.
She's not able to. She's just been able to chat.
Yeah.
I also wonder if VNA at HCS may have some insight on that, as they are also a VNA, so they may have similar protocols or expectations, so they may have some suggestions as to how they've approached that. Right.
Yeah. We're yeah. It's been a struggle. But we have some new management and new stuff coming in, so I'm hoping maybe with that might be more successful. So.
It looks like Melanie responded via chat too.
Hey, Shelly,
but they get permission.
Hello?
We get permission.
Okay. Just the text from Melanie says that they get permission to text. So it's part of, I guess it's part of their, kind of part of the consent process.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I can look into it.
Shelly?
Yeah, let's follow up on that.
Hello? Shelly? It's Lisa.
Yeah.
We came up with like a compromise too with the texting, just because so many people, that's the only way to communicate with them. We just try to keep it to just scheduling. No identifying, no questions. If they wanted to chat with the home visitor or the nurse, if they sent a text, they would say, you know, please call me back so we can talk about this. So we only use it for scheduling purposes.
Okay. All right, that's a good idea. They might buy that. So.
Okay.
I will try it. I will management. So.
So anyway, we wanted to put an example out there and kind of show how those, you know, how the activities and the decision points work. Does anybody have comments or questions about this, developing the process map? Has this been helpful?
It was helpful for me when the scribble I sent you, I'm like, I understood it, and my home visitors and you guys did an awesome job interpreting it. So, but making this proposed enrollment process, I'm going to show to my home visitors, and we're going to work on this. So.
Well, let's make sure. Yeah, let's make sure that it actually does reflect what what it is that you've now put in place, because you've started doing it. This has not got those 3 days in a row in the right. It's not interpreted right. But yeah, great. Well, good. I'm glad. Any other suggestions or comments?
Yes, Sandra, I have a comment. It's Lisa again. I was, I guess when I think it was you or somebody else that mentioned how, their husband, everything has to be in Excel, and that's how he can envision things. I think even this process, what you have in front of us now, for me, it seems like more like an Excel spreadsheet, and that's not how my brain works. I think that's the hardest part, that I'm trying to conceptualize these little boxes and the arrows and all which ways it's going. I think just to grasp that idea for me is what's been pretty difficult.
So, so just to clarify, you don't have to do it in that Excel format. That's just, this was done in Excel, and it's a kind of inaccessible for many people, an accessible way to set it up, but it's not it's not a requirement that you do it in Excel format. But what's kind of important is that you're able to delineate where you have, what an activity is and then what a decision point is, so that you can see where your decision points branch off. If you're doing this, then something happens, and if you do something else, then it goes down another path. But I don't think it's, you need to do what works for you.
Lisa, I don't know if this might work for you, but this is Christy, because we had also done a process map here at the state for one of our processes, and what we did was we actually did it with sticky notes on the wall, so things could be moved and changed, and if we decided that this shouldn't be here, it really needs to move over right a little bit and something else needs to go in the way, we had the ability to move things around without having to deal with all of the computer crap that can sometimes be frustrating for people. So I don't know if that might be more helpful or if there's another way that might work for you, but it definitely can be done more visually if that's easier.
You can say it, more old school. Yes, I'm old.
But that was what worked for us.
The key is to get that pathway down there, that you can actually see the path, so that everybody's seeing. It's kind of like a common language, but how you get there is a perfect segue to the next section, and I want to make sure that we have some time for this. And as I mentioned earlier, we received this feedback, and so through our own continuous quality improvement process, we've actually engaged in the PDFA cycle here, where we had a plan of what we were going to do. We did it. We tried it out, which is we had the kickoff. We had the calls with each agency, in between the kickoff and the meeting in November. We did the meeting, and basically, so we did all that we had planned to do, and then we studied what we got. We got some feedback, some data, and then we looked at it, thought about it, reflected on it, and we continue to do that. To determine how to move forward based on, informed by that new information that we got. And that's really the process. And, critical to understanding it is understanding, context, developing trusting relationships, and then, balancing flexibility and fidelity. And we think that we share these points with you and the work that you do with families. And so I just want to put that out there. But so we understand that some of the LIAs are conducting or have conducted program self-assessments related to the standards of quality for family strengthening and support, which is a systems assessment geared toward family resource centers, and is similar in many ways to the 5P systems assessment that we started this process with. And I think that some folks thought it was duplicative, and that they actually found the family strengthening and support assessment more accessible and more relevant through language and through approach to the work, to their work. And so I just want to say, I want to thank you first for bringing it forward, and say that it's basically where this process needs to start is with an assessment. And if it's the 5 Ps is a framework for a systems assessment. The other is also a framework for a systems assessment. And so I don't want to get into a thing. I think that, back again to kind of the balancing flexibility and fidelity, that we do want to be basing our work and what we're going forward through based on assessment, but I don't think it has to be bound to a particular assessment. The point is to have that take that systematic look and understand what your system looks like as it relates to this work. You know, I want to encourage you to think about not only those assessments, if they're helpful for you in understanding, you know, where your strengths are and where improvement would benefit your program, but also to think about possibly other work that you've done, because you are on a day-to-day basis, as I understand your work, and is that you're working with families, you're doing an assessment, you're thinking about, you know, how they can put personal systems in place to meet their goals and to be able to build on their strengths and what's working and try things out, and don't make like a huge commitment before testing it out and seeing how it's going to feel for you, what's going to work. So I just want to make a point to emphasize where I think that you are already doing this process, and you've done, I know that you've done significant amount of effort in terms of looking at the enrollment improvement plans, for example, that you've developed in the past. And whether or not thinking about how the work that you've done already to identify what you might do to make a change, or what you have done that's make a change and been helpful, I just want to urge you to use what you have and let that be a big help that provide a good foundation for the work that we're doing. And so, I want to reach out and ask you about your feedback, your comments, your thoughts about that.
Could I just ask something? So it sounds like if people are already doing continuous quality improvement work through other programs or through this program, if they've already done it, would it be helpful for them to send you, if it is that we're focusing on a particular task in the CQI process and they have work that already supports what's being asked of them, that they could submit that to you, and that could provide a good foundation moving forward for, then they could kind of just look at smaller pieces because they already have all of this work already completed?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would ask you to please do that so that we can best understand your context so that we can best support you. I think that the thing about quality improvement that I love the most about it is that it's really about learning. It's about forgiving. Because it's about learning, no matter what you do, it's a win-win. And we didn't know about the standards for quality and family strengthening and support, and I'm sure there are other work, other documents, other things that you have at your agencies that we aren't aware of, but that would really help us understand how you're doing, what you're doing, and help us be able to support you in this process, which we have to do, focused on HFA. Any comments or suggestions?
This is Christy. Just one thing that I might suggest to people is looking back at your quarterly work plans. Some of those have had some really great insight as to things that you could potentially try to do quality improvement. I know a lot of times people get to the point where they have this really great plan and then there's a staff turnover, or someone goes out on leave, or something happens to disrupt that. So I would encourage you to revisit some of those work plan ideas that you've had, because I know some people have had some really great work plan ideas that they've put into that they just haven't had an opportunity to implement yet. So that may be an additional place that you can look for things that you've already done.
Great, thank you, Christy. All right, so well, we're at 3, but I want to look at next steps, and this is encourage what we're talking about right now. What kind of existing information sources, do you have that could, in your enrollment improvement plan, other organizational or programs assessments, or your quarterly work plans, and any others. And please let us know what you have that can be helpful. And the second thing is we've got, some of the teams have established standing coaching call times, but we really need to set those up. And we do not want to harangue you. We want to help you, and we need to be able to connect with you to do that. So I urge you to please, if you haven't gotten in touch with your coaches for the times that have been sent out for possibilities, or if there's meetings that you're already having that we can tack on our time too when people are already together, that would be wonderful. But please help us set those up. And then the other things is if you haven't submitted your charter or a systems assessment yet, then please send those to us. We're working in the dark if we don't have them. And the other thing is the process map, and I wanted to throw out whether December 29th would be a reasonable amount of time to ask people to get their process maps to us.
And Lee, the document that you were talking about earlier for the Family Resource Center Standards of Quality, that would be an example of a system assessment, correct?
Yes, it would. Yep. Thanks. And anything else that you have that, if you don't know, if you want to send it to us, we can help you figure out how to use it. We'd love to do that. Wouldn't we, team?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, we.
So, okay, so we're past, and so I just want to, hopefully this was helpful. We'll send in an evaluation, but I want to urge you, please, let's communicate, and let's set up coaching times, and if you have any concerns, any questions, please reach out to us. And we really look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a nice holiday.
Bye.
Nice holiday. Bye-bye.